Welcome to Aasai Rasai. Thanks for checking out this video for Sri Lankan cashew and green peas curry. And this recipe and the ingredients are listed in the description box below this video, so check that out. Just this time I'm not going to feature it on this video itself. So I'm going to start by using some cashews that I have soaked. We got to use cashews that are unsalted and unroasted. So these have been soaking for about 24 hours. The longer you keep it, the better. Aim for a minimum of 6 to 8 hours. 12 hours is even better, and 24 hours is fantastic. And these are halves and pieces. You could also use whole cashews, but just soak them longer and it takes a longer cook time as well. And the comparison of before and after soaking right there. So I am first going to temper the ingredients. And if you want to avoid the added oil, simply skip this step. I have a couple of other cashew curry videos that I've made without tempering. So don't let the oil get too hot when you're trying to temper the onions. The onions should not be caramelized for this recipe because this is going to cook for a very long time, like about an hour at least. So when you are tempering the onions and they burn or they become caramelized or brown or whatever you want to call it, all that bitterness is going to get in the curry because it's going to cook for long. So what I'm going to do is add the onions in the oil that hasn't even warmed up yet. So it's rather, I could say it's cooled oil. And then as the oil warms up, it'll start to cook the onions. And then by the time the oil is really hot, the onions will be translucent. And that's exactly where I want it to be. So when you see that the oil is bubbling and the onions have become fragrant, you can add the cinnamon bark and curry leaves. If you're using cinnamon powder, you can add it later on with the other powdered spices. Now I'm not adding green chilies into this because my chicken curry is really going to be the spicy curry. So this is going to be the mild one. If you want to add a little bit of heat, then 2 or 3 green chilies, fresh green chilies, can be added at this time. And also use a heavy bottom pan when you're making curries like this that take a long time to cook. A clay pot like this also works, or you could use any metal heavy bottom pan and not those flimsy aluminium pans. Now we're going to temper the cashews. So I have rinsed them out of the water that they were soaking in and drain them. So I'm gonna just toss it around in the oil like this and temper it just a little bit, and reduce the heat right about now to low so that when we add the spices don't burn. When you're making cashew curry, be careful of what spices you put in it because it takes on any flavor that you throw in there. It's not like any other curries, and some kind of spices or ingredients can make the curry taste really bad. So just keep the ingredients really mild. I've used just a little bit of curry powder, coriander powder, cumin powder, garlic, some turmeric, and I think that's about it. So just very few spices. Keep it mild, and it's going to be the perfect taste once it's done cooking. So this is also part of tempering. I am tempering the spices with the cashew. That's because I want the spices to release their flavors and the oils. If your pan becomes too hot at this point, just go ahead and add the water. Don't spend time tempering the spices because if those burn, your curry is going to be bitter. And always check for salt by tasting the gravy and not the nuts, because the nuts will not absorb the salt immediately. So by the time the curry has finished cooking and it has rested, you can taste for salt at that point and adjust. So we're going to cook this on low heat. We're going to cover the pot and let it do its thing, but check back every 15 minutes to stir. Now this is midway through. I'm going to stir and make sure that the flavors are all distributed, and you can see the cashews are not even done yet. Still a long way to go to finish cooking this. We're going to cover this, cook it, and check back every 15 minutes. And I'm gonna just cut to the chase. This is 40 minutes later. Let's see how we are doing as far as the tenderness of the cashews are concerned. The water is reducing, so we know that it's getting cooked. The cashews should not break so easily. When you press it like that, you see they fly, and that means it's not ready. So cover it and keep cooking. This is about almost 1 hour later. Notice there's only a little bit of gravy, and that's thick from the cashew starch. We haven't really added anything to thicken it. So now we can check if the cashews have cooked through. They should be a little bit fluffy and not snap when you squish it. So let's check. So squeeze it between the fingers like this. There you go. It's not popping anywhere. It's fairly starchy, and this is as starchy as it gets. And another way to check is to break a nut. It should not be a solid white in the center. See, there is no white spot. It's actually a dull yellow color, and that's what you want to achieve, because that way you know that the cashews have cooked all the way through. So now we can add the milk, and once you add the milk, you can just turn off the heat, but keep stirring for about a minute longer, just so that the milk doesn't clot. So how much gravy you're going to add would depend on when you're going to serve this. If you're serving this immediately and you want the gravy to be runny, then this is how it should be. But if you're serving this later on, then you would need to add more gravy, because the gravy does thicken and reduce, and it also gets absorbed by the cashews. If your gravy is really runny and not thick like this, you can add a little bit of rice flour, like about a teaspoon or two of rice flour, to thicken the gravy. So after stirring this well, you can turn off the heat, cover it, and leave it on the stove top for about 10 minutes, and that will help the taste of the cashews to improve as well. And this is 10 minutes later. Before adding the peas, I really need to let this cool down for about 20 minutes off the hot stove, and you do that covered, because if you leave it open and try to cool it down, it's going to form like a skin on the top, and the gravy is going to dry out. So here are my frozen peas. I'm just going to run this under cold tap water to remove that excess ice. If I use it now, it's going to thin down my gravy, and I don't want that. So now you can see bright green, no ice, and they're still frozen. So once I add this into the curry, it's going to drop the temperature of the curry even more, and then the pot will have just enough heat to warm the peas through. So you still have that nice bright green color, the sweet taste, and maybe a little bit of a crunch in the green peas. And the steam that you're seeing right now is not coming from the pot. It's actually coming from my chicken curry that's right next to this pot. And that's how you make a creamy cashew curry with green peas, and this is considered a white curry because we didn't add roasted spices or red chili powder. So I hope that you will include this in your festive menu or any special occasion meal. My weekends are special to me, so I like to have a cashew curry on my weekends, and it is considered a delicacy in Sri Lankan cuisine. So have it, serve it, enjoy it, like, share and subscribe to Aasai Rasai. It means a lot to me. Thanks for watching.